The storm had been raging for hours, waves crashing against the lighthouse like furious beasts. I had been sent to relieve the previous keeper, a man named Thomas, who had vanished under mysterious circumstances. The lighthouse stood alone on the jagged cliffs, its white paint peeling from decades of salt and wind. As I approached the heavy wooden door, a sense of unease settled over me. Inside, the air was thick with the smell of damp wood and oil. The spiral staircase creaked under my weight as I climbed to the lantern room. The light above was dark, its mechanisms frozen in time. I examined the old controls, trying to understand how the light operated. Strange shadows flickered across the walls as the wind howled outside. I could feel the isolation pressing down on me. Thomas had left notes about unusual happenings in the lighthouse, though most were scribbles I could barely read. They mentioned whispers in the dead of night, objects moving on their own, and the sense of being watched. I laughed nervously, trying to dismiss it as superstition. The first night passed with nothing unusual, though I couldn't shake the feeling that the walls were closing in. On the second night, I awoke to a faint tapping sound coming from the lantern room. It was rhythmic, deliberate, like someone counting. I grabbed a flashlight and ascended the stairs. The light from my beam danced across the walls, revealing nothing but dust and old equipment. I shook my head, telling myself it was just the wind. As I turned to leave, a whisper froze me in place. "Don't leave." "Not yet." The voice was faint, almost carried by the wind itself. I froze, heart pounding, unsure if I had imagined it. Days passed with increasing strangeness. Footsteps echoed when no one was there. I found objects in different places than I had left them. One morning, I discovered Thomas's old journal on the floor, open to a page I hadn't seen before. It described a secret chamber beneath the lighthouse. Supposedly, Thomas had found something that wasn't meant to be discovered. That night, I felt compelled to search for the chamber. The floorboards under the stairwell were loose, revealing a narrow passageway. Dust rose as I crawled inside, the air thick and cold. The passage ended at a heavy stone door. I pushed it open and was hit with a pungent, metallic smell. Inside, the chamber was filled with old maritime relics and strange symbols carved into the walls. At the center, a pedestal held an old lantern, unlike any I had seen. The flame inside flickered with a sickly green light. As I approached, the air grew colder, my breath visible in the dim glow. A sudden chill ran down my spine as I noticed a figure in the corner. Thomas, or something resembling him, stared at me with hollow eyes. His mouth moved, whispering words I couldn't comprehend. Panic surged through me, but my legs refused to move. The lantern flared, and suddenly, the room was filled with voices, shouting, crying, and screaming all at once. Shadows stretched across the walls, twisting into grotesque shapes. I tried to back away, but an invisible force held me in place. The figure reached out, its hand passing through me like smoke. I stumbled back, crashing into the pedestal. The lantern toppled, extinguishing its sickly flame. Silence fell, oppressive and suffocating. I gasped, trying to make sense of what had happened. The room seemed empty now, but the weight of unseen eyes lingered. I retreated to the main floor, the wind outside howling like a living thing. Sleep was impossible that night. The whispers returned, soft and persistent, calling my name. Days turned into nights in a blur of fear and exhaustion. Food and water ran low, and the storm showed no sign of letting up. I found an old radio, and for a moment, static became voices. They spoke in warnings, fragments of sentences. "Leave. Don't look. It watches." I tried to call for help, but the lines were dead. Shadows began moving against the walls even in daylight. One morning I found Thomas's journal again, open to a new page. The words seemed to have changed, describing me instead of him. My name was written repeatedly along with strange symbols. Panic surged. I wanted to destroy the journal, but something stopped me. It felt alive, pulsating with a power I couldn't understand. That night I saw the figure again, this time floating above the floor. It whispered, "Join me." Fear and curiosity warred within me. I realized the lighthouse itself was not just a building. It was alive, feeding on the living. The next day I found markings on the walls, freshly etched, my own handprints in some black substance. I tried to scrub them off, but they returned each time I looked away. The storm intensified, lightning illuminating grotesque shapes in the distance. Each flash revealed faces pressed against the windows, eyes hollow and staring. I barricaded the doors, but the banging continued. Sleep was a distant memory. Hunger gnawed at me, yet I could not leave. The chamber called to me, pulling me toward it like a magnet. I finally succumbed, crawling through the passage to the hidden room. Thomas's figure awaited me, calm and expectant. He raised a hand and the lantern flared with an otherworldly green light. Shadows danced across the walls, forming twisted, impossible shapes. The voices returned, louder this time, chanting in unison. I felt my body weaken, energy draining as if the room itself consumed me. Thomas's eyes locked onto mine, and I understood. He had become part of the lighthouse. The flame in the lantern leapt, casting an unnatural light across the symbols. They writhed, forming images of despair, suffering, and death. I screamed, but no sound came out. My limbs moved against my will, pulling me toward the pedestal. A final surge of willpower made me stumble backward. The lantern toppled, extinguishing the light once more. The chamber fell silent, shadows collapsing into nothingness. I ran up the stairs, desperate to leave, but the storm had intensified, waves crashing violently against the cliffs. I could see the lighthouse starting to groan, the walls bending as if alive. Doors slammed, windows shattered, and the building seemed to inhale, drawing me in. I ran into the night, the rain soaking me to the bone. Behind me, the lighthouse seemed to pulse, as if hungry for the next soul. I didn't look back, sprinting toward the coast road, praying for any sign of life. Hours later, I stumbled into a small town, soaked and trembling, barely able to speak. The lighthouse stood in the distance, ominous and silent, waiting. And I knew with a certainty that chilled my blood that it would never stop searching for its next keeper.